Hello, my name is Phil, and I'm a doctor who likes to talk about the board games I've been playing recently. And today I want to talk about a game from last year, which is Sanctuary. I know this game has been talked about a lot, it's been out for a while. It's the sequel to Ark Nova, and so it got a lot of attention in the last year. Ark Nova, the number two game on Board Game Geek right now, definitely helps Sanctuary be a game that people talk about. So, does it still hold up today as a good game? As a quick overview, you are in this game using many mechanisms that you find in Arc Nova, namely action selection with the dynamic power scale for those actions and a large selection of tiles to build out your tableau from. You have animals, projects, and houses in Sanctuary similar to the animal sponsor and conservation project cards in Arc Nova. Some ways that Sanctuary differs and makes it a simpler, more streamlined experience is that you get rid of the whole credit economy where no tiles cost money, just the power on the actions that you take. You don't have any coffee breaks to help refresh your credit supply or get any other source of repetitive income. You only have four action tiles to choose from instead of five. And there are more differences, but those are the biggest ones that I could find. I think the point of this game was to make a tile version of the card game that is Arc Nova, quote unquote, card game, and perhaps make an experience that is quicker than Arc Nova. At lower player counts, one and two player in particular, I think it can be a quicker experience, but I don't think that Sanctuary doesn't necessarily make the experience feel quicker at higher player counts. It might, actually be quicker when you use a timer or something, but I don't know if it feels quicker. Even on Board Game Geek, it says that a game of Sanctuary could last upwards of about an hour and a half. And as I've said before on this channel, games that are lighter in rules complexity and strategic depth, like Cascadia or even Wingspan, which are still fun games in and of themselves, but they feel like they overstay their welcome sometimes for the type of experience that I want to have in a game that lasts longer than an hour nowadays. And my tastes have skewed more towards the heavier and more complex games, and so that's totally on me. To me, Sanctuary falls in the category of possibly being still a bit too long for what it's trying to do. In addition, I think about the fun that I've had with lighter games, with interesting decisions that I've been able to play with my friends at work, for example. And unfortunately, I think Sanctuary is not only too long, but also a little too complex to play comfortably in that scenario that I have personally. It is a lighter game for gamers, which I've a hard time wanting to play these days as I turn to heavier games. Those are the ones that I have the time to play and the interest to play with friends on the regular. And so I don't know of a situation that I would be able to play Sanctuary regularly with friends. It's definitely not as strategic of an experience as Arc Nova is, and therefore there is more replayability with Arc Nova and more depth to get better at it over time. There's more of a skill ceiling, I suppose, in Arc Nova, which is understandable. And I think that's why the game is so successful. However, Sanctuary had some really fun aspects to it too, despite it not being as a strategic of an experience. I like some of the nuances it provides, such as like the Everdell type chase for two animals of the same species. Like in Everdell, you have the farmer. If you have two farmers on your tableau, you get a bonus. Same thing here. You get a small bonus if you have the male and female versions of an animal on your board. You have the spatial puzzle of animals that require open spaces next to them. And if you hadn't placed open spaces or utilized the ones already printed on your board, you can discard cards from or tiles from your hand to create those open spaces. I like that puzzle element to this game. In essence, I think Sanctuary is more of a reactionary type game, more tactical experience, where it's possible to grab onto some tiles to combo together, but also it's the type of experience of trying to play the best tiles and whatever you might have in hand or might be able to draw from and what's given to you at certain points of the game. And of course, this definitely applies at higher player counts where the tile market can be very dynamic and you would not have an opportunity to draw some tiles. I would say that that applied at lower player counts as well, where like in the solo mode, for example, you're constantly cycling through tiles, and so the ones that you might want to try to draw on a future turn may not be there the next turn because it was cycled. I was, though, pleasantly surprised by how fun it was to play. I kind of went into Sanctuary thinking that, and based off of what other people had said as well, that it was, because it was a lighter experience, it did not hold up enough to Arc Nova. It's a very hard bar to pass or even meet. But I was pleasantly surprised by how fun it was. It doesn't replace Arc Nova, but it does create a different enough experience while mixing in a lot of the familiar mechanisms and theme that make Arc Nova unique and special. With the release of digital formats for Arc Nova being available on Board Game Geek and on its own special app, I believe that Arc Nova itself can be played a lot quicker. I think, and so this is a comparison to how long each game feels rather than the actuality of how long it plays. Arc Nova, when it first came out, when it was just the board game and people were still learning it, felt really long. My own personal experiences with the game were 3 to 4 hours long, even at 2 players. But now that we have apps and BGA to be able to play these games at a relatively quicker speed, and in addition to the amount of time that Arc Nova has been released and has had time for players to become accustomed to it and to play it quicker while still having a strategic experience, I feel like Arc Nova feels a lot quicker than it used to. And so I feel like I can play a more strategic and a strategically deep game in Arc Nova compared to Sanctuary, which once again feels a little bit longer than it should for the amount of complexity that it provides in its gameplay. In sum, while I really enjoyed Sanctuary, I still think it's a really good game. My heart still goes to Arc Nova, and I would rather play it if given the choice between the two games in person or even online. I would gladly play Sanctuary with someone who really wanted to play it. It's a different yet similar experience that's worth trying out at the very least if you do enjoy Arc Nova. I think if you like Arc Nova, you will enjoy Sanctuary and appreciate for what it provides. If you like tile lane games more than card games, there is a tile lane aspect to Arc Nova, of course, but if you really like that tile lane experience from games like Cascadia, for example, then I think you would really enjoy Sanctuary. And if Arc Nova is a little bit too complex for comfort, I think Sanctuary also hits pretty well there. But yeah, if I were to compare the two, I still would prefer to play Arc Nova. Sanctuary is a little bit more tactical, less strategic, and feels a little bit longer for what the complexity it provides when it comes to playtime. So, very good game, but not quite for me. So those are my thoughts on Sanctuary, a year since its release. Glad to have played it, but I'm curious what you think about Sanctuary. If you've played it, let me know if you like it or not. Thank you once again for watching this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.